Hi, this is Dan Heisman, Philly tutor for Chess FM, and this is the Improve Your Chess video series for ICC members. In today's video, we're going to look at a slow game. All right, let's get right to the game. White opened with e4. Black played d5, center counter or Scandinavian. White doesn't have to take the pawn. For instance, white could play d4. That would be the main line of the Blackmar-Dmar gambit, but the main line of the center counter, of course, is to take the pawn. And now black has two main moves, knight f6 or queen takes d5. Black plays queen takes d5, and now the most common move is d4. However, Grandmaster Larry Kaufman has suggested that, the main line is knight c3. Grandmaster Larry Kaufman has suggested that you should just play maybe d4 and then play c4 and attack the queen that way, rather than putting the knight in front of the c-pawn. So white plays knight f3. That would be the main move if black had played knight takes d5. But on queen takes d5, knight c3 is the main move, hitting the queen, of course, and d4. All right, so knight f6, d4, bishop g4. The computer thought that bishop g4 was okay, maybe not the best move. Bishop e2. c6 is now kind of passive. Much more aggressive is to play knight c6 and start putting pressure on this pawn, get ready for the e5 break. So after c6, white gets to hit the queen for free with c4. And now, of course, queen e4, pinning the bishop would be silly because of knight c3. So black plays check, and the computer suggests here knight c3 is perfectly reasonable. White plays bishop to d2. And black plays queen back to d8. Threatening in some lines, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, queen takes d4. The computer suggests that white should counterattack on b7 here with queen b3 with a very large opening advantage, much larger than a normal advantage. Instead, white moves the bishop a second time, plays bishop e3, over protecting the pawn on d4. Black plays e6. And now white should play knight c3. Again, with a nice advantage, not as big as he would have had after queen b3. Instead, he plays knight bd2. Well, with the pawn on c4, it makes more sense to have the knight on c3. When your knights are connected this way, we call those redundant knights. Redundant knights are sometimes weak because they block each other. All right, so here the computer suggests white's advantage is down to minimal. Black plays knight bd7. White says, what are you going to do, Mr. Bishop, on g4? Black says, I'm not giving you the bishop pair. White castles. Black plays bishop e7, ready to castle. Rook e1. And now the computer suggests that white should play g4. Let's look at that for a minute, because that's the kind of move that my students would almost never make. They're too worried about their king being attacked. Here, black's pieces are not in good position to attack the king, and white is in good position to expand on the king's side. So g4 would give white a nice little advantage. Is it a little risky? Yes. If you don't know how to play it right, could you go bad and it would turn against you? Sure, but as Bobby Fischer once said, you got to give squares to get squares. And a lot of times moves like that, g4 can be really bad, they can be really good, but a lot of people won't play them at all, whether they're good or bad. All right, so white plays queen to b3, and black plays queen to b6. And now white has to determine whether he's going to trade queens or not, and the computer suggests that g4 again might be the best move. White plays c5. All right, now let's talk about that move for a minute. You see good players occasionally playing c5 in this kind of pawn structure, but it's got to be in a very specific kind of position. That move can either be okay, it can be, fairly good, but it can also be really, really bad. What it does is it makes